Hey guys, SilverPaw68 here again, and this is Chapter 2 of Those Three Words. I'll be providing links to the author, and I'll also be providing links to this chapter down in the description if you'd like to follow along with me. Here we go. Sonic couldn't believe what he just heard. Tails was gay? But for how long? Since when? Who did he have a crush on? Has he told anyone else? The Kitsune was right, though. It was a big deal. An unbelievably, undescribably, massively gigantic deal. He was right about the other thing, too. Well, half right. Sonic couldn't think of a single person they knew, or anyone else for that matter, who wouldn't hate Tails. "You hate me," Tails whispered as if reading Sonic's mind. "No!" Sonic insisted, shaking his head frankly. "No, of course I don't, but—" He trailed off, not wanting to say it. "But everyone will," Tails finished for him. He sighed, pulling himself onto his bed, where he sat down heavily, causing the mattress springs to rattle. Screwing his face up, he wrapped his arms around his middle, moaning softly in pain. More emotional than physical, Sonic assumed, while rocking back and forth slowly. Sonic felt so sorry for him. He tried to imagine what it would feel like to be a boy and suddenly realize you liked boys instead of girls. How would it feel to know that you couldn't tell anyone? Not ever. Not even your own parents. If you told anybody at all, even just some random stranger in the street, you'd be killed. No questions asked. No word of protest. Your parents, friends, family, they'd all be in the crowd torturing you. Sonic felt touched that Tails had managed to gather the courage and ask him. Personally, Sonic never saw what the big fuss was about. Some people now, who were married, males and females, obviously hated each other. Some married couples couldn't stand being with their partners at all. They were allowed to stay together, whereas gays, who would be in love, were forbidden to go even that far. Was that so wrong? Sonic didn't hate them, and he didn't hate Tails. Sonic shuffled a little closer to the fox, wrapping one arm around his shoulder and holding the opposite shoulder with his other hand. I don't want to be this way, Sonic. Tails sobbed. He raised his head angrily. I wish I was dead." "Don't say that," Sonic said quietly. "Too late. I already did," Tails responded childishly. Neither one smiled at the joke. Nothing was funny at that moment. "Tell me more," Sonic said quietly. He was sure Tails would refuse, since he didn't reply for a while. "Well," the Kitsune started, "it just happened. I woke up in the morning. I saw this person for the first time that day. I knew straight away something had changed. I kept on wanting to be near him. I mean, I looked at him hundreds of times before, but never really looked at him. He seemed to stand out. And his eyes, I never noticed before how beautiful they were." Tails could feel himself flushing red. He knew Sonic was probably laughing at him, maybe even disgusted with him. But when he looked at him, the hedgehog got a carry-on look on his face. Tails swallowed. "Afterwards, I just couldn't stop thinking about him. Like every song, every stupid cliche. You don't think of anything else. You just want." He stopped to sigh. "I found that I blushed scarlet every time he came near me. I didn't talk to him as often either. I kept meaning to tell him, but I knew that." He began to sob quietly, again turning his head away. He didn't want Sonic to see him being such a baby all the time. He took a deep breath before carrying on. "I knew I couldn't tell my parents. I didn't want to tell any of my other friends at school. I wanted to tell you, though, Sonic. I thought you had the right to know." "I don't hate you, Tails. I'm glad you told me," Sonic insisted. It was true, but he wasn't sure whether or not Tails believed him. The fox gave a small smile. "I started to, have dreams about him. We were always together." He glanced up at Sonic, whose expression had changed, and was hard to read. "I know what you're thinking, Sonic. You think all my dreams are about him and me having sex. But most of them are the most romantic things in the world. He held me close, whispered things at my ear. I remember one dream where he was kissing me. I couldn't look at him the next day. I kept on getting the urge to kiss him. To kiss me," Sonic muttered softly. That single syllable silenced the entire room. No one said anything in response. Both best friends simply sat, staring at each other. Tails gazed longingly into those beautiful, soft green eyes, guilt eating away at him from the inside, forcing him to break his gaze. "I'm so sorry, Sonic," he stammered, tears beginning to slide down his face. "I couldn't help it. It just happened, and shh," Sonic breathed, placing two fingers gently on Tails' lips, silencing him. Then slowly moved his hand slightly and carefully, brushed away the stray tears from Tails' face. Tails gave a teeny gasp at the motion, his cheeks once again growing crimson. Sonic's hand still hovered by Tails' face. The kit's neck suddenly gave a small jerk, causing him to accidentally sweep his cheek against Sonic's palm gently. Tails' warm face stayed cupped to Sonic's hands like that. They stared intently at each other until Sonic's eyes closed slowly. He leaned forward, his head tilted slightly to the left. He lay his lips on Tails' for exactly 4 seconds before breaking away again. Tails remained in that position, eyes closed, mouth parted just a bit. His heart thudded against his chest because he knew what just happened then was wrong in anyone's eyes, but he couldn't help feeling so high. He felt like he was floating around in some place where everything was quiet and peaceful, where he could do anything he wanted with Sonic and no one would care. Tails opened his eyes again, breathing out gently. He smiled at Sonic, lifting his hands to the hedgehogs, gently lifting them from his face, simply holding them in his own, clasping his fingers happily. Sonic? A knock at the door started both of them. They practically jumped up to the ceiling as the door opened with a slow creak. Jumping apart, they both lay back on their fronts as if they'd been playing video games. Sonic even picked up his controller, though Tails was too slow to do the same. Tails' mother poked her head through round his door, smiling at both of them. "Hello, boys. Having fun?" she asked with a smile. Sonic returned it with his own grin. "Yeah, thanks, Mrs. Prower." Tails ducked his head and nodded. "Tails?" The kitsune lifted his head again, looking at his mother. He wondered what would happen if she knew what he and Sonic had just been doing. He wondered what she'd say. What'd she do? "Tails, honey, what's wrong?" "Nothing, Mom, honest," he insisted, tears spilling down his cheeks. He suddenly started sobbing loudly, covering his face with his hands. His mother rushed over, hugging him tightly, stroking the back of his head, rocking him back and forth. Sonic watched awkwardly. He couldn't help feeling the tiniest bit jealous. He wanted to be the one comforting Tails, hugging him like that, telling him that everything was going to be alright, even if he knew it wasn't. Well, that's the end of those 3 words, Chapter 2. I hope to see you guys next time in Chapter 3. Well, have a good day.